Welcome to this episode of After the Breach podcast. We're your hosts, Jeff Friedman and Sara Shimazu, coming to you from Friday Harbor on San Juan Island. We've been a little lax, Jeff, in our recent updates on the podcast. It's been a crazy busy season, but
it has.
We thought we would do a kind of off-the-cuff episode, catching everybody up on what's been going on, why you haven't seen new episodes from us in the last couple of months, and just letting you know kind of some of the news that's coming in, whales that are coming in and out, and catching you up. But thanks, guys, for listening. We're so happy to have you here. We're so happy to be putting out a new episode. And Jeff.
Yeah,
hey.
This is... Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
This is episode 16, and episode 15 was 2 months ago.
Okay, well, I mean, like 2 months in the busy season. Not too bad.
No, are definitely the busiest part of our busy season. We've had a lot going on the water the last 2 months.
It's the August grind,
and this is now the August grind. August is such an interesting juxtaposition to me because on the one hand, we're really tired. We've been
very tired.
We've been pretty much going 7 days a week. Even on the days we're not on the water, we're doing something related to this. So it's like we're tired. We're in the kind of this routine of, a lot of the same questions that we get on the boat. So we're in this groove it's almost like I can almost give the intro of how to get out, how to get on the boat. It's making me laugh because there was one day that last year, it was in August, and I looked at April and I said, you know what? I'm tired of doing this. You show people how to get on the boat and I'll hold the line in.
I actually think I remember that. Yeah,
so there's that, but on the other side of it, this is when things start getting really interesting on the water. It's at the beginning of, I think, of our favorite time to be out on the water because, and we can't tie this. We have no reason or basis to know why this is, but like I've been telling people, September came early this year because the last 2 weeks, there are so many whales out there in so many different groups that we'll get reports during the day of like, hey, we have a group of whales going down the west side of San Juan Island. And it's like, well, no one's going to go check that out because there are 6 other groups spread around the area and everybody's with whales with like 1 or 2 boats. Yeah.
It's pretty crazy. I mean, even today, it kind of started off slow, and then all of a sudden it was like boom, 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 boom everywhere.
The best way to find whales today is if you went to where I was an hour after I was there were whales there.
I'm sorry, Jeff. It happens to everybody, though.
I know. It was a little bit of a rough day.
I was watching that and going, oh, man, Jeff, I'm so sorry.
I covered around 100 miles round trip today, and there were whales all throughout my path, but never when I was there.
Just an hour later?
Yeah. I mean, we did see whales today, but boy, we could have seen a lot more if I had woken up an hour later.
Or hour later. He could have gotten an extra hour of sleep.
Exactly.
Well, we did have some cool whales today, but before we get into that, there's a couple other stuff.
That's a very August saying. A couple other stuff.
Kind of like the first intro I tried to record where I said, coming to you live, but then not really.
No, but we are alive.
We are alive, but not live.
So I think you were going to talk about our photo workshop coming up in a few weeks.
Yeah.
We still have a few seats available.
We do have a few seats available. And for those that have been asking who are not able to make it this year, yes, we will have future workshops available. But this next month, September 23rd and 24th, it's a Saturday and Sunday, we have a photo workshop, and each day is individual, so you don't have to book both days. You can book one or the other. Most people enjoy booking both because we'll do different things every day.
Yeah, it's like every trip. Each day is different.
Totally unique. September is one of our favorite, if not the favorite month of ours to be out on the water here. Weather conditions are usually great. The wildlife is off the hook. And with an all-day tour, we can go almost anywhere. There's a little cat in the background. Sorry, that's Sunday. So 6 to 8 hours on the water, maybe more. We'll see what kind of happens. We're very flexible on these days, and we're just going to go out and be looking for whales, talking about their stories. So you've heard their stories on the podcast, and that's going to be in person live with hopefully the whales present.
Yeah, we usually have different groups of big killer whales during that time. And some years, if everything aligns correctly and the weather aligns correctly, we can also get really big aggregations of humpbacks feeding, like 50 to 70 humpbacks. And basically, as far as you can see, you're going to see blows and backs and flukes, and it's pretty cool.
I'm sorry, I'm just really laughing at the cat in the background. So yeah, it's really, really amazing.
Every podcast needs a cat in the background.
It really does. So $5.79 per day. It includes a catered lunch. We're going to do some photo instruction. I'm going to do a whale ID class afterwards that everyone who signs up is welcome to join. And we'll have other stuff and kind of swag and that kind of thing available. And
a lot of fun.
Yeah, a lot of fun. So we do hope you can join us. Reach out to us by email or on Instagram if you're interested in getting more details or signing up. We would love to have you.
Yeah, so the email is afterthebreachpodcast@gmail.com, and it's After the Breach on Instagram. Is it After the Breach or After the Breach?
After the Breach.
Okay, on Instagram. But yeah, we got a few seats left each day. So if you're interested, get in touch with us and sign up and come on out. It's going to be a great time.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun.
You did this last year.
I've done it for the last few years.
Mm-hmm. I've driven on those, and yeah, it's always a lot of fun.
Always completely different.
Always completely different.
Yeah.
I think we've had whales every single time.
Knock on wood.
Knock on wood. And I'm hoping that we do get the opportunity to go either way north or way west to some of those aggregations of humpbacks.
Well, maybe one day north and one day west.
I like it. We can go back to Nanaimo.
The blogging town.
The blogging capital of the world.
Inside joke. Well, that being said, we've had a lot of stuff going on. Our last episode was about the Alaskan brothers. Gosh, I just said that, and I don't like to call them that because all these whales go up to Alaska. So the brothers, T125A and T128, and their kind of unique situation that occurred with the rake marks on T128. And I think we left off with we hadn't seen them yet, but when we posted in the summary notes that they got back together and were seen like the day after we posted our new episode.
But we have not seen them in quite a while. I mean, since the week after we posted that, I don't remember.
No, I think they've been back one other time. They were down here for like a day out in the strait.
Okay, yeah, because I haven't seen them really. I think that was the last time I saw them was when I went out and we saw them back together. That was the last time that I personally saw them.
So back together,
at least back together. But we've had a ton of their friends.
A ton. Originally, when we talked about this episode, I think we were going to talk about like a few different things, but T65A5 Indy was one of those, and he's been one of the whales that's been around. So maybe we can start with him. But he's been getting into and out of trouble, I should say.
Definitely. And we've talked about him I think we've probably talked about him in some respect on every episode because he's always popping up somewhere with his family or without his family. And he's 9 years old now?
Yeah, born in 2014.
And has been dispersed from his mom and siblings since he was 5.
4.5, 5, 2018-ish.
But he does go back. He's actually with his mom and siblings right now.
Today, yeah, in the Sound.
Mm-hmm. But if there was one whale from any population of any species in the world that I could get on this podcast,
he's the one you'd want to interview?
Absolutely. He is the most fascinating whale I have ever seen. Dispersing that young. And he seems to, it's almost, the way it's working now is it's almost like whoever you come across, whatever family you're seeing that day or group of families, you're asking like, well, is Indy here too? Because he just mixes it up with everybody.
He does.
For a very brief period of time, and then he goes off on his own, and then he pops up with another family. I mean,
or by himself.
We had a trip, and you were out that day too. We weren't together, but we were on different boats, and nobody had seen orcas all day long. And then Indy popped up in Active Pass.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
He was the only whale that was found that day, only killer whale.
Yeah, because I took my people out and I said, just being up front, we've not seen killer whales. We've not seen whales all day.
And
they were like still gung ho to give it a whirl, and it paid off.
And Indy paid off.
Yeah.
He's just so interesting. I mean, he's been with the 34s and 37s. He was with them for a little bit.
77C for a little bit.
I knew that. I knew that one was coming. But he did get in a little trouble. Was it July? He had just gone back to his mom and siblings, and then left. July. He left them, went into up the east side of Whidbey Island, and was seen entangled in crab gear.
Yeah. Well, he has a habit of getting into trouble, because last year he got stuck in the, what do they call it? The lagoon in
during low
Port
tide.
Angeles Harbor overnight. And there was a whole big kerfuffle. Couldn't get out. The police were called, stranding networks were called, and then the tide came in the next morning and he swam out all nonchalant. So, I mean, what I'm saying is he gets into trouble, but he's developing a very good skill of getting himself out of trouble as well, which is not to say that he's not going to get himself into trouble and, not need a human intervention at some point. Hopefully not, but it's a possibility. But with this instance of the crab pot,
but it sounded like they were attempting human intervention.
And he wanted nothing to do with it.
So he was seen pretty heavily entangled in crab gear, and I think if we can, we'll post some photos in the show notes if we can grab some. We don't have any of our own, but maybe
I wasn't
we can
there.
Link to something. But he was pretty heavily entangled, and the entanglement team was called, and they came out, and people were keeping an eye on him all day to make sure that we didn't lose track of him. And from what I heard, the entanglement team was not able to, he just wouldn't let anybody near him.
Yeah, so it sounded like he wanted really nothing to do with the response boat, and was kind of doing longer dives and moving away from them. And from what it sounds like, and what I've read and talked to other people about, is that he moved into shallow water. And what I'm guessing, just based on us having, used crab pots before, is that the line is typically 30 to 50 feet long, usually about 50 feet long. And so if he's in deeper water, that crab pot is just kind of hanging there, free floating, or not floating, but dragging. And he got into this shallow water. The crab pot was actually able to ground and release tension on the line. And then he was able to free himself.
Maybe when he takes it into deeper water, he's just getting a workout. It's strength training.
He's doing strength.
Because he worked himself out of it really fast with no intervention. And I think it was close to the end of the day, last light. And it's like, hey guys, don't worry about me. I'm good.
Yeah. And, we do see whales in this population playing with crab traps, crab floats, lines. A couple repeat offenders have been called into the stranding network multiple times for being quote unquote entangled, and then have not actually been entangled. But in this instance, it's always better safe than sorry. But yeah, they do kind of like to play with those floats and lines, and
we see that quite a bit. Yeah. We had one day early this summer, we had T49A2 and his uncle. 49C in Friday Harbor, in the harbor, and they were grabbing the floats and pulling them underwater and dragging the crab pots several hundred yards, and then the floats would pop back up. And I remember I can't remember.
Me.
Yeah, and we had photos where it looked like the lines were wrapped around them. I mean, they were wrapped around their body. And people were texting and calling us, asking, saying people from shore wanted to report whales that were entangled in crab gear. And 5 minutes later, after they were done dragging them around a little bit, they left the harbor, and all the gear was still in the harbor, so they weren't entangled.
Yeah.
And then this weekend in Salish Inlet, we had a group of, I think it was 16 killer whales, and we got to the very bottom, and we've talked about Salish Inlet on previous episodes. It's one of our favorite places to see whales. And at the very bottom of the inlet, it gets pretty shallow, and it's apparently a great place to drop a crab pot. And we were down there, and as we were talking about it to our guests on the boat about how they sometimes play with crab gear, we started seeing floats disappearing. Mm-hmm. And we were watching Jack, T137A, pulling down. It was a crab pot with 3 different floats, so they were big.
So extra fun. And they were disappearing, and you always hold your breath. You're always, I even said, like, hey, watch those floats, watch that line when he starts moving off to make sure that he's not carrying it with him. And we worry, but then he was playing with it for a while and then just left. Yeah. And
it did breach a couple times. I've gotten to see 2 breaches from 137A.
Yeah, rub it in.
Yeah. I've never seen him breach before.
No, I know. I mean,
I've gotten 2 in August.
I did get 1 distant while driving, so it's tough. And I know you were driving as well. I always see people with these like amazing photos of Jack breaching, and I have up until this month had never seen him breach, and I was just like, what is it with me? Like, he's timing.
He is, yeah, and he's so big. Mm-hmm. I did also get to see not my first ever, but my first real like solid Galliano breach this month.
Oh, congratulations.
And thank you. It is I posted that photo on Instagram. I got it timed perfectly, and I mean I was just right place at the right time with my camera. Sweet. And we'll
post that in the show notes too.
Yeah, and it is incredible to see him breach.
Oh, he's massive.
Gary sent me a text he was out there, and he's like, I heard somebody breached. I wasn't looking, and my passengers are all like screaming, what was it? And I'm like, dude, Galliano breach. And I think his other boat was like leaving at the time. Oh. So they missed it, but it's fleeting. He does it once, mm-hmm. and you may not see that for a couple of years.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've seen him breach a few different times, and I would say a lot of times it's like a one and done, or like 2 and then done. So you just have to like really have your camera kind of in the right place at the right time.
And not that there's anything wrong with the smaller whales breaching, but when the big adult males breach,
it just doesn't happen very often.
It doesn't, and and you get to see their pec fins, which are like
queen size mattress.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, they're so big.
Well, speaking of Galliano, his family's been around, but it's kind of been interesting to see this continued little split. Not all the time, but a lot more than in the last like 3 years, 5 years.
Yeah.
I haven't seen them, to be clear. I have not seen the 18s or 19s.
So I did see last week. I got to see 18 and 19C. So grandmother
and grandson
and youngest grandson, and the 2 of them have been traveling separate from mom and the older brother.
19 and 19B Galliano.
Yeah. And they split apart and get back together, and sometimes these splits are hundreds of miles. It's not like, oh, they're just a few miles away.
Right.
These are hundreds of miles split up, and then they come back together. And we saw this actually, and I'm getting to kind of an idea and a question for you. We saw this the other day with the 137s. We saw 137A Jack, who we were just talking about, with his youngest sister, and mom and his other sister were not there, and they were found, and they weren't that far away. I mean, they were like 10 or 15 miles away, but the 2 sets of 2 were going in complete opposite directions, and they did not have an acoustic corridor anymore.
Interesting.
And I don't know if they've been seen back together since then. But
yeah, I think they were the other night, weren't they?
I don't know.
In Saanich?
This was after Saanich.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this was after they were with the 109As and the 38 kids. This was the day after, like, the 2 nights where they were in Saanich. This was the next day, and they were totally split.
Interesting.
And here's where my thought and idea and question for you. It would be cool to get somebody like Jared Towers to comment on this. Maybe we can have him back.
Maybe he's listening right now.
Maybe he is. But we're seeing these splits. We're seeing dispersals from young killer whales like Indy and the 77 kids. And I'm just wondering how much of this, if we even know, it's like this is just how this population, their social dynamics work, or are these new social dynamics that are developing because their population has gotten so big and there's so many more of them and they have so much food that they're now exploring these new social dynamics of families splitting up we used to think, okay, the females will leave once they start having their own offspring and they'll get back together, but they travel as their own matriline. But now we're seeing parts of matrilines dispersing and coming back together. Yeah. And is this a result of just a population that is thriving and doing really well and spending more of their brain power, more of their energy budget on social behavior?
Yeah, I guess, like, my guess, and this is totally just like, whatever, it's not scientific, like, just my thought is that it's probably not new social dynamics so much as this is like a return of these social dynamics because the population of their prey is so much better here now, and they're spending more time here, and they have plenty of food in every corner, nook, and crevice of the Salish Sea that, now they're able to travel in larger groups, and they're splitting off, and they have bigger families, so we're seeing more dispersal. That would be kind of my guess, that this is something that probably happened before we were paying attention and, killing and culling their prey sources and that kind of thing. But who knows? That's just my guess.
It's interesting to see. I mean, just in the short time that I've been here doing this professionally, it's so much has changed where, it's getting better and bigger every year, where we are seeing them, the big killer whales in larger groups with multiple families that are very social. For those who have been following the southern residents out here for decades, like you, a lot of these aggregations of big killer whales, when they're socializing, look very much like it used to look on the west side of San Juan Island when you had large groups of southern residents here. I mean, they're rolling all over each other. There's breaches, lots of surface time and surface percussion. Yeah. Yeah. And I think we're seeing more of that. I mean, I've seen more of that this year this has been, for me, the most epic whale summer. Oh,
it's been amazing.
I mean, we've had killer whales this month, I think almost every single day. Mostly bigs. We did have, and we should talk about, the southern residents here for a very, very brief period of time.
Yeah, I guess, like, overall, I kind of feel like we as humans like to talk about, the understanding of animal behavior, whether it's killer whales, whether it's lions or wolves or any animal, kind of like in the scope, wombats of our the scope of our own, like, time spent observing them, and kind of like, this is new behavior that we're seeing. Well, like, we in reality, like, we're a blink of an eye in the timeline of things. And so I tried to take a step back and, like, rein back my ego and thinking that, like, everything I've experienced is kind of like all that's ever been, if that makes sense. Like, they've been doing this a lot longer than we've been around, so it's probably all, like, normal behavior during times when food is plentiful and there's a lot of whales and new babies and, available females and available males,
Yeah, it's very
but we're
true.
just not, we just weren't present to witness it, but that doesn't, make it new behavior to us. It's just, or new behavior. It just makes it new to us.
Yeah. And that makes sense. But I also think I just wonder that if there's an element of some of this being new because their population has been smaller in recent history for the last 50 years. I think their population has been smaller because their food was less abundant.
Sure.
And now that it's more abundant, a lot of the whales that, I mean, look at their population. I think we have around 150 whales in that population under the age of 10. Those whales don't know any different.
Right.
And it's really interesting. And I mean, I'm sure there were times historically where that was the case with those numbers as well. But
right.
I mean, it is new to us, but this is also new to them, to the young whales.
Unless their mothers told them about. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm getting into for everything, Sarah.
No, that's a good point. That's a really good point. And I would say like kind of in the same vein, I would expect that they probably have some historical, cultural knowledge, being as, socially intelligent and, just everything that they are. The southern residents avoid certain areas or historically have avoided areas like Penn Cove, even though only one whale currently alive was alive during the captures, so right. It's there. I'm not saying that it is that they've passed on this cultural knowledge, but it certainly seems like there's some cultural knowledge and history that's passed on between generations. But again, that's totally anecdotal, not coming from a scientific point of view. Just my own ramblings in August.
But I'm a big believer in this. I think it's easy to dismiss anecdotal because it's not peer-reviewed science, right, or solidly collected data. But I think people will dismiss it. But to me, I don't think that it's anecdotal is meaningless. I think anecdotal means a lot.
Yeah.
It's funny because I keep coming back to this. I've talked about this a lot on the boat the last few weeks, and look at the amount of time and wow, are we lucky that we can say this? Look at the amount of time that we spend with killer whales. Mm-hmm. We're out with killer whales hours a day, almost 7 days a week for over half the year. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're very lucky, but beyond the luck of that, we are observing a lot of what's going on in their world with their behaviors and with their social dynamics, more than, we see more anecdotal than anybody. And I don't think you can dismiss.
No, I don't either.
And I think it has more value than some people might think because of stories like Indy or the split in the T18s.
Yeah.
That it's anecdotal, but it means something.
It does, definitely. Well, that went a whole different tangent than I was expecting, but I like it. I really like where that went, and I think we could talk about that a lot more. But I'm just going to continue on because we have so many sightings to get through. Not get through, but share with our listeners, and especially this kind of cool one, Jeff. Just from the other day, T63 chainsaw back in the neighborhood.
Yeah, for a rare August, very brief, but rare.
2 days, I guess. 2 days.
Rare. And I'll tie this even into a bigger surprise with not just him visiting with his mom, but the 65As who typically spend most of the summer here have been. They're back. As of a couple of days ago, but they've been absent most of the summer, except for T65A5. So wherever the 65As went, which I think it was up to Alaska, 65A5 did not. He stayed down here and he held the fort down with the socializing with other families. Yeah. He was repping the 65As with the rest of the community. While the 65As were up north, probably with 65 and 63.
Who knows, right?
Who knows? But yeah, surprise chainsaw comes through in August.
And was kind of seen like in the Strait of Juan de Fuca one afternoon, and I was like off island for the first time in so many months, and I just like opened our app that we have between companies and looked at the sightings, and I was like, T63, what's Chainsaw doing back here? And then to find out that he was with his mom, of course, and Sam T4062.
Yes.
Talk of another whale that dispersed at a young age, who has been with her cousin and first cousin once removed, like her
pretty
cousin's
much
kids,
since.
like for almost a year at least, I would say.
Yeah, and then sees Chainsaw and was like, "Ooh, I'm going with him."
Yeah, and was with him the next day as well.
Yeah, and you got to see him.
I did,
and
yep.
And you were so excited that you sliced open your toe.
Yeah,
it was on that. It was on that trip. Yeah.
Yeah. That was fun. Tetanus shots were no fun.
But it's always cool to see him, and this is kind of funny to me because, I mean, I don't think I saw him my first 3 or 4 seasons out here. It was so fleeting when he was here, if he was here those years, and then I think I've seen him almost every year since then. But it's short. He doesn't spend a ton of time here, and I was thinking about this when we were with him the other night because you just get glued to taking pictures of him because he's such a unique looking whale. And I realized I've never seen him do anything other than travel. I've never seen him
We saw
breach.
one tail lob, Jeff.
One tail lob. I've never seen him hunt. I've never seen him breach. I've never seen him spy hop.
And somehow we're still enamored of him. Whereas like with other whales, we'd be like, oh, okay.
Right. They're boring.
No, that's true. I was, you had mentioned that the other day, and I was kind of thinking back to like all of my sightings of him over the years. And I've seen him with a lot of like social groups, and he was with the second day he was here, just a couple days ago. He was with the 99s, 38C and 38E, and then of course 46C2 and 65. But they were super social when we got on scene earlier in the day, like just nonstop, like breaching and rolling and blowing raspberries. And here was Chainsaw long dives from Chainsaw. Like these whales would be up and socializing. And I would guess that he was probably doing close to 10-minute dives.
That's so
just
funny.
But right in the middle of everybody, but just like,
oh, they were probably all over him when he was down there.
Yeah. So, and that's something I've seen with him in other very social groupings of whales alongside Chainsaw.
It just occurred we're throwing all these numbers out.
We're gonna introduce them as we go. We'll introduce another match line at the end.
Yeah, and we're throwing all these numbers out. It's almost like whale bingo, right?
Yeah, whale bingo. Mm-hmm.
So I'm not expecting to see him again until spring, but who knows?
Yeah.
But really cool to see him come through in August. Was very unexpected.
Yeah. No, if he wants to come around more often, that's A-okay.
Well, and we haven't seen the other part of the family. The 65Bs haven't been around in a bit. Not sure where they are, but they spent a lot of time here in early summer after her visit down to California. Try and be a movie star, but that didn't
I feel like
work.
we normally see her in September.
We do see them a lot. Them
like
in the 123s.
It gets smoky. We've had a lot of days with them where it's been smoky, and then we get a lot of wildfire smoke in September sometimes.
But it's interesting. We have so many different match lines here right now that it's almost easier to talk about who's not here.
That's true.
I mean, it really, it's. I was making a list earlier, and now I'm remembering, and I was like, wow, this is a huge list. And I'm remembering, like, we didn't have the 46s or the 46B1s on that list.
And the 46B1s were here the other day. They were actually here the same day that Chainsaw showed up with Sam and
right, because Sam ditched them.
But they were like miles and miles and miles ahead, and I think actually turned around and they passed each other going opposite directions, and Sam still stayed with 63 and 65, Chainsaw and Mom.
And one of my favorite families has been around quite a bit, the 37As.
Yep.
They are definitely one of my favorites. I was starting to wonder if we were going to see them this year because they weren't here at all, really.
Yeah.
I think they may have popped in early in the summer for a day or two. Maybe it may have been a miss ID, but we came across them in New Channel a week or two ago, and just wasn't sure who we were coming up to, but coming up to a group of killer whales on a very, very active hunt in an area that is just full of harbor seals. And just very surface active.
A few less now.
Yeah. Very, very surface active hunts. And as we were getting closer, I was like, okay, well, we've got a really big adult male in the group. not big male, not so much adult.
No.
37A2 is what, 14? 14, and he's huge. Yeah. I couldn't believe how big he's gotten in the last year.
Yeah, he's
a massive
big guy. Yeah.
Well, and a few days later, I got him confused with one of the 46 boys, and those are old school, like OG big boys.
Yeah, to be fair, you sent that photo, and I was off the water again because I don't know how I was off the water, but he had that like bend to his fin from the angle you sent because it was kind of like from behind, and that, you know, the notch in the middle, and I was just like, yeah, I agree that this is who you think it is, 46E.
And it was not.
It wasn't.
37A2.
And then you said that, and I looked closer at the eye patch, you know, just a little bit of an angle of an eye patch, and I was like, yeah, no, that is 37A2, absolutely.
I mean, he's going to be a massive whale. He's so big already at 14. But they're a fun family they're always very energetic. Whether they're social or hunting, like there's a lot of energy in that family.
Well, we had that really cool encounter with them 2019, because that's when 37A5 was born, right? Yeah. And it was like December, I think. We had him in Swanson Channel. We had that charter we took out, and the passengers were like, look, whales. And we were like, yeah, those are porpoise. And then we looked over and it was like, oh no, those are whales.
I remember that. I have like a photographic memory of like turning my head, like the guy sitting behind me just very casually like, oh, there are dorsal fins right there.
Yeah. And she, you know, was logging at the surface. Mom 37A was logging at the surface with the kid, you know, the kids, and I was sitting up on the bow talking about these whales, and we had just shut down because they were, you know, just logging there. They weren't going anywhere. And I tell the story about like how, you know, people ask like, oh, are whales interested in people or boats or whatever? And I was just sitting up on the bow at the very front, and heard the water move behind me on the other side of the boat from where the rest of the whales were as I was talking to these people. And I just leaned back and looked over the side of the boat, and there was 37A3 on his side, just below the surface, looking, watching, just looking up. And I leaned over and looked at him, and he looked at me, and then he rolled over and took a breath, and he went under the boat and went back to the family. But I don't really know how long he was there watching. Like,
that's so interesting.
It was really kind of cool. No, not kind of cool. It was really cool.
Yeah, and those moments are so fleeting, but they do happen.
Yeah,
but they're rare. While you were telling that story, as we're going through our recent sightings, one that I forgot to mention that I thought we would probably mention earlier because it's happy and very cool and fun and really interesting.
You don't want to save it for the end? No, tell it now.
The 75 Bs.
Oh, yeah.
So the 75 Bs were traveling with 77 C and D. They were.
Yeah.
And now they're not. Now they're just with 77D because those two split.
Which is weird. To me, maybe not to them, but to me.
But there is a brand new calf in that group. I think they were seen up in Johnstone Strait. I may not be exactly the right date. On August 6th, I think, without a calf.
Yeah, it was like a week. There was a week span, like, right. You know, August like 4th or 5th, and then August 11th was, I think, the day that they were seen with a baby. So we know it was like between the 4th and the 10th or something. I don't know, like exact dates. I'd have to look.
So brand new calf that I think everybody assumed right away was the 4th calf of,
or the 5th calf of
75B.
Right.
She's 28 and she's a baby maker. I mean, we know what she likes to do in her free time because she's just every 2 years, every 2 to 3 years, she's clockwork.
Yeah.
So that was assumed. But now not so sure.
Now I think they're thinking it's her oldest. Well, not oldest. Well, 75B2, her oldest surviving offspring.
8.
Who is 8. It would be the youngest wild orca mom on record.
Right. But 77D is still a possibility, but probably not.
Yeah, I don't know.
But she's young too.
Mm-hmm.
But they've been so neat to watch because these are all very young whales. I mean, the oldest is 28. That's
sure.
But there's a 2-year-old in there, and when we were thinking it was 75B's calf, it looked like there was competition for the slipstream between the 2-year-old and this is why nobody really knows who. We've seen the calf closely associated with 75B. We've seen him or her closely associated with 75B2. And then there have been times where it's like, okay, the calf is right in between 75B2 and 77D.
Yeah.
And so like, whose calf is this?
Yeah. It's funny because I haven't had that many encounters with them since the calf showed up. I think three encounters with them. And every time that I've seen them, the calf has been firmly with 75B. And so I was like, why, what's going on here? Like, what are we thinking? Like 75B2, but every photo I see, the calf is with 75B2. Like every photo that everybody else takes is
I think that's where people are
75B2.
kind of leaning now.
Yeah, and I think that is the thought. But and so I was like going back through old photos, and 75B2's dorsal fin when it was a newborn looked exactly like this calf. Is really cute. There's a lot of family resemblance.
That'd be cool to post that in the show notes.
Well, I don't have a photo of it, but I was just looking back through old photos on the web.
But they've been fun to watch because with such a young calf and all these young whales, it's like every encounter that I've had with them, they're just rolling all over each other. They're social almost all the time, and then they break for a meal, and it's a really quick hunt, and then they get back to socializing.
That's cool.
Yeah, really, really neat. Well, you and I had a great trip together with them when we were in Strait of Juan de Fuca, and it was glass.
Oh,
and they weren't really going anywhere. They were just kind of in the same spot, but they were all over each other.
That was the first time I saw that calf.
Yeah, they were all over each other. They've been around we've been seeing them
for weeks. For the whole month, really.
Yeah, almost every day. Not quite every day, but they've been found almost every day. Except I don't think they've been found today. But
I don't think so. But there's a lot of groups that haven't been confirmed IDs.
This is true. So. But yeah, we've been seeing them quite a bit.
And now we're like a third of the way through our list.
I know. It's been a crazy, crazy August.
It has. Well, another really cool family that we don't see very often, kind of tagging along off the chainsaw like theme, the T109As.
Yeah.
Like I should say, we personally don't see them very often. They're seen a lot more out in the Strait of Juan de Fuca, like west of Victoria. But I go maybe like once a year, maybe I'll see them. Maybe.
Yeah, and I think the first time I ever saw them was west of Victoria, and they were going west. So I think they're seen mostly like Tofino.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But another family of a lot of young whales.
Yeah. So 7 without the A2s that travel separately. So mom has had 7 calves. So her youngest is 2021, I think.
I think that's right.
And then her middle daughter had a calf last year. So 2 young kiddos in that group. And they were just like breaching up a storm the other day in Sansom.
Oh yeah. With the 99s.
You got them with the 99s. Yeah. I had them by themselves.
Okay. Yeah. We had them with the 99s and the 137s.
But
yeah, I think last year, it was either last year or the year before when we saw them, in Admiralty Inlet, which is the entrance to Puget Sound. Yep. That was the furthest east they had been documented. because they usually like hit Victoria and turn around and go back west. And I do think they're starting to spend more time further in.
Yeah. Because they've been seen a few times since, I mean, they've been around, they're still around. Like they're still.
Yeah. I saw them yesterday down at Smith Island.
But I think it was like almost a year ago not to the day, but very close to it that they were in, because it was smoky. I've seen people's photos from shore where they were like spy hopping with kelp in their mouths and hunting in the, right along the shoreline.
Yeah. Yeah. They're another energetic family because lots of young whales.
Yeah. Well, just like human kids, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the 109Bs were around yesterday.
I didn't see them.
I saw them for like 10 minutes. They were pushing against a really steep tide, steep current down in Cattle Pass, which is a really, really narrow channel between San Juan Island and Lopez Island. And during a really big flood, the current's coming in and they were going down, so they were going against it. And they spent, I've seen whales take longer, but they spent a good few hours pushing against it. It seriously seems like fun for them, because there was a lot of surface active behavior and a lot of breaching. And then eventually they were like, all right, let's do this. And they worked their way south and got out of there.
Yeah. And they were seen again today, I think you said. With T2B.
Yes. Somewhere out west, somewhere southwest.
Yeah, and she was normally, like, we see her with the T60s.
Who've been around,
but she's kind of broken off and rejoined, or not rejoined, but has joined up at least temporarily with the 109Bs. We'll see. Maybe that's her new kind of adopted family.
Well, it's interesting because from what I know, which is not, nearly as much as when she's not with the 60s, she's with the 90s.
It used to be she was with the 90s, and then she switched to the 60s.
So the 90s are another one we can put in the list who are not here.
Which
here. Means they'll probably be here tomorrow.
Right.
We don't get a lot of them.
Yeah, less now than we did a few years ago, I feel like, but I'd have to really look at the data.
But I've always known T2B to be with one of those two matrilines. So this is new to me, her with the 109Bs.
Yeah, and I think, so Monica, who's joined us on several episodes, was up north for the month of July, based out of, near Telegraph Cove, or based out of Telegraph Cove, I guess. And she saw the 60s a lot up there. That was one of the families she saw quite a bit up there, and some days T2B was there and some days T2B wasn't there, so maybe that was kind of like the transition period.
What an interesting whale. Is she ever seen with her sister?
I don't know that I have ever seen her with her sister.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard of her being with her sister.
Yep. No, I mean, I'm sure she has, but I can't think of a time.
So we should get to the other ecotype that we have seen. Although I don't think that I saw them from shore or from the boat.
I saw them briefly from shore this visit. So before we kind of jump into the sightings of the southern resident killer whales, I think it's important to at least note, memorialize the loss of Tokite.
Absolutely.
So Tokite was our last surviving southern resident killer whale in captivity. She was captured in 1970 in Penn Cove and passed away August 18th of this year in Miami Seaquarium. It's been very heartfelt. There's been a lot of memorial events for her. There are a lot of questions that people have and feelings that they have, and we're definitely not the right people to answer them, because there's people that have spent their lives working to bring her back. So we do feel like it's important to mention her passing, because she was a part of this population, and we're very sad that she has passed away. But Orca Network, Howard Garrett, Susan Berta, they've dedicated decades and decades and decades of time to work to bring her home. And their pages on Facebook are probably the best place to find more information on events happening, if you have questions about what comes next, that kind of thing, they are a great resource. But we're sad for the loss of Toki.
Absolutely. It was heartbreaking to hear. I know there was a lot of hope around her finally getting out of Miami.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're definitely not the experts. I will always be proud that I got thrown out of the Miami Seaquarium for wearing a Free Lolita t-shirt.
Nice. I never made it down there, but
I did not pay to go in.
Yeah. Well, good for you. That being said, so right around the time that Toki passed, the Southern residents came in. So August 17th was the first time since the end of July, I think.
Yeah.
That they had, or maybe even earlier than that. All the days blend together. But that they came in, and the first time that K-Pod has been in since, I think, January.
Which, and for those who are either new to the whales here or, relatively recently, I kind of grew up here on the bigs because that's who's been around during my time here. But it's shocking for most people to have this gap of July, whatever, even if it was July 31st to August 17th with no Southern residents. I mean, they used to be here every single day during the summer months or close to it.
Yeah. When I started doing this, when I started coming out here in the early 90s, I think 91 was my first year that we visited, I think. If we were here for 2 weeks, we 12 out of the 14 days, right. Southern residents, we were seeing them from the west side. And the other 2 days, they were probably up at the Fraser,
right,
feeding on salmon.
And now if you're here for 2 weeks in the summer, you're probably going to see them 0 days.
Yeah. So it's been a big flip in their presence here compared to the Biggs killer whales.
Right.
And if you're just joining us now, then there's so much information to be had. I would definitely kind of point you towards episode 2, where we talk about the two distinct populations, Southern residents versus Biggs. But for those of you that are familiar with the Southern residents, you'll know it was a big deal. J-Pod, K-Pod, and most of L-Pod came in on August 17th. I think everybody except for the L-54s. So
right.
four whales there. So
and they did come in, but separately.
They came in
later.
2 days later.
Right.
Yeah, August 19th.
Was everybody else still here when they came in, or were they up? I think they were up north.
So
they went all the way up to Campbell River.
The L12s, the greater L12s. So Ocean Sun and, the other whales that they travel with, not all related, but kind of we call them the greater L12s, stayed down off the west side. And then the other 60... all of K-Pod, all of J-Pod, and then the other part of L-Pod went up north, and they did go all the way up to Campbell River, northern Strait of Georgia. And then the L-54s came in, the L-12s left, and then I think the next day, 2 days later, maybe the gang came back down.
But so the most of them came in. It was it the day before, or the day of Toki's
the day
death,
before
her death, and we haven't seen them. I mean, it was a short visit here. They went north, and then I think they came back down and left right away, or the next day.
Yeah, I think they left. Oh, maybe the 20th. I'm having trouble remembering. 22nd, maybe 21st or 22nd.
It seems like we lost like May, then we lost June, then we lost July, and now it's starting to seem like we're starting to lose August with them too. September has seemed like it's the most normal, quote unquote.
Yeah.
But a lot of that is that they're starting to go after chum, which is going down to, they're not around the San Juan Islands, they're down in Puget Sound at some point in September.
In the winter, yeah. They're, usually in October, but who knows, it could be earlier. They'll start kind of making forays down into the Sound.
Well, and from what I understand, the northern residents were very late coming in to Johnstone Strait.
They were.
their population is doing better than
but
it plateaued,
still
but much healthier and bigger than the southern residents.
Yeah, it kind of seemed like our 2013 is what is the kind of the energy that Monica said, was kind of like the feel up there when they were up north. Sorry to quote you, Monica, but it was kind of the feel. Like 2013 was the first year down here that we really had these like big periods of absence from the southern residents during the time of year that they would normally be in the summer.
It would be we should get Monica on for an episode to get a kind of an update from her and hear about her season up north and her observations from there.
Yeah. But just to, kind of follow up on the southern residents, it sounds like everybody was seen and accounted for. The 2 new L-Pod calves are still looking good, L126 and L127. L126 was born to L119 Joy, and then L127 is the third calf of L94, Joy's aunt, Calypso. Calypso. Sorry, end of a long day and the end of August, so you'll forgive me for my gaps in
It's still August, memory. Isn't it?
Yeah, it's still August. Groundhog's Day, Groundhog.
Oh, don't say that.
And the Center for Whale Research was able to get sex, the sex on both calves the last time they were in. So L126 is a male and L127 is female.
That's
so
awesome.
A girl and a boy.
So that's done from aerial photography.
L127, I think, was from drone, and L126 was from a boat. Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. That's awesome that they were able to do that. And we need to get the Center for Whale Research, some of those guys on our podcast as guests.
They've agreed. They've agreed. I've talked to them a few times. So I
we
think
need to do that before people start breaking for the winter.
Yeah. So, but I think that kind of, it leaves out still, there's a lot of whales. The T2Cs have been around. They came through.
Yeah. 69s.
Really the 69s.
Yeah. Who I think we're seeing more this year than I can remember seeing.
And they've been involved in kind of some of these big social groups.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Really cool whales, 69Cs, huge dorsal fin. What did Dave say?
Huge dorsal fin.
Impressive dorsal, disappointing eye patch.
Yeah. The 100s, the 101s have been around.
Just kind of an insane amount of bigs on some days, on a lot of days.
Yeah, it's been incredible.
Yeah.
So we're going to have lots of upcoming episodes. Yes. I think we'll get Monica back on. We'll get the Center for Whale Research. And speaking of breaking for winter, we will do at least one episode, if not more, from Bremer Bay.
Are we really going to do episodes from Bremer Bay?
Well, we're going to be there.
And we are going to be there.
We are going to be there, and we're going to be out with whales.
So we should do it.
So we should.
If we have internet service in Bremer Bay, we will do episodes from Bremer Bay. We'll at least record some stuff down there for you guys. We'll be posting updates on our social media. But my plan is to be down there for the month of January.
I will be there part of the month of January.
Yep. And we will be, bringing you updates from there. I'm really excited to head back down there. Just, so many questions I have, and can't wait to see those whales again.
I'm excited. I was there very beginning of January 2020.
Yeah.
Before the whole world
shut
changed.
down.
Yeah. And I'm excited to go back because it's been so long and so much has changed in the world that I remember when I was there and experiencing those whales, it was so emotional and so interesting, and it's hard to even put words into it because they're so different than the whales here, and the whale watching is very different than it is here. And here you've got land all around, and a lot of the times you're watching killer whales tight to shore.
Yeah,
and there you're out 30 plus miles.
Yeah,
offshore.
A lot of times there's no land in the background, and sometimes you just have this one big sand dune kind of really far in the distance.
Yeah, and just big groups. The times I was there, very social. I did not see a predation except on the Mola Mola.
The poor mola mola.
But other than that, I mean, they're super social and also very engaging with the boat.
And we saw some more mola mola like harassment, I would say, not quite predation events, but definitely like mola mola harassment.
It's interesting and very, very blue water. It's just very different than here.
Which is impressive because Jeff is colorblind.
I'm good with blue.
You're good with blue. Yeah, and you were out, I think we were only out 3 days that time.
We were.
So it'll be cool to have you back out and seeing them more
I want to see
than 3
longfin
days.
pilot whales.
Yeah, they're so cool.
Yeah, I don't think we really saw any other whale species out there when we were out. I think we had killer whales every day we were there.
Yeah, well, we can keep our fingers crossed for some beaked whales and hopefully not getting... Well, I mean, maybe hopefully getting eaten, but hopefully you get a sighting of them not. But it's pretty rare. But yeah.
Yeah, so we'll at the very least we'll record episodes there, but it'd be fun to do some.
Yeah, it would. It would.
Even maybe like
they'll be rough cut because we won't have our equipment down there. But
right. But maybe we can even do like
live.
I was going to say live on Zoom, but I don't know if the internet's. That's how far we're going. We're going to the edge of the internet.
You know, we'll see. Like, yeah, I kind of had to sit in like the resort parking lot to get internet down there, but it's a small town, guys. For those of you wondering, Bremer Bay, I highly recommend. It's a trek out there if you're interested in seeing.
It's beyond a trek. It's
it's
first you have to make a trek.
Yeah,
then you
have to make another trek.
Yeah, and then another.
It's out there. It's a small town, but it's an amazing experience if you can handle big water.
Yeah. I mean, first you have to get to Perth. And I think Perth is, I may not be getting this exactly correct, but Perth is the city that's furthest away from the most cities on the planet.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Because I remember when I was telling my parents that we were going to Perth and I was saying it's the furthest city on Earth away from Cleveland, but then it's the furthest away from more cities than any other city.
Yeah.
So first you have to get to Perth, and then it's what, 8 hours? An 8-hour drive, 8 to 10 hour drive.
8 to 10.
On
depends on which way you're going and how the roads are.
And you're not talking about like on the I-5.
No.
Like these are in some places like
not even paved.
Right. You're not sure. Like, are we not only am I not sure I'm on the right road, are we actually on a road? And then you have to go 35 miles offshore.
But it's so worth it.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. But that's how awesome those whales are.
Yeah.
I mean, we're basically going to the other side of the as far away as we can go, the other side of the planet.
Mm-hmm. And I know we talked about the Bremer whales a bit. We're going to try to get some folks on from Australia to join us at some point here in the future.
Not just folks from Australia, but people that actually know about the Bremer whales.
Sorry, should have been more clear there. To talk about the whales, and we'll talk. I can talk more about what I did down there because it was the data that I was able to collect was pretty fascinating. I'm looking forward to collecting another year. And just kind of comparing and seeing how different they are from the whales we know up here. Yeah, it's just fascinating.
Yeah, we're gonna do at least one episode down there, if not more.
But until then, we have a photo workshop coming up.
We do. So yeah, if you
we also have daily trips out.
We do. We'll be running daily. Probably daily through mid-October. We also have an all-day tour on the day after Thanksgiving. Opt outside for Black Friday, and I think we do still have some room available.
Yeah, and there's
a few seats
we've
open.
Been lucky the last few years. We've seen whales on those trips. It's had great whales.
It's been amazing that we're always holding our breath for the weather, but we've had really good weather, and we've had. Either some years we get big groups of super active humpbacks. I think last year that we had a group of killer whales that we had never seen?
I don't know. I was at the art market.
That's
remember?
Right. That's right.
So you can come for the opt outside all day trip, and then you can come see me at the holiday art market where all of the artists on San Juan Island get together, and I sell all my like cool whale stickers and stuff like that. And yeah,
make a weekend out of it.
Buy some Christmas presents.
So we'll run daily. Into November. It may not be all the way through Thanksgiving that we have trips every single day.
Sure.
December, mostly weekends.
Yeah.
January, February, we will be out.
Yeah.
But then back at it in early March.
Well, you're going to be.
I'm doing the Silver Bank again in early March, so I
for 1 week or two.
Just one this year.
Okay.
And then maybe we will put together an After the Breach Silver Bank charter for 2025.
I know we already have a lot of people interested in 2025, Jeff, so you need to get those dates.
All right, I will work on that this week because it is. If that's something you're interested to, that is
definitely let us know.
And but the soonest of all these activities is the photo workshop. So got a few seats. If you're interested, give us a shout, and we will be back soon with some more great episodes.
We promise. We are at the end of our kind of like high season now. I know it's been a little bit of a stretch waiting for new episodes, so thank you guys for sticking in there with us. We did not just wander off into La La Land and give up on the podcast. It's just this time of year is a crazy busy time of year, as you can tell from all of the sightings that we shared with you and all the ones. Just trust me that we didn't, because we just can't remember even.
And I don't know if we really had one day off together. Like
we haven't.
Like simultaneously. And so during that peak season, it's tough. September is a big exhale.
Yeah.
We're still going out every day, multiple times a day, but it's not.
We're done earlier.
We're done
by like 7.
Right. The days are shorter.
Yeah.
We can't be out on the water until 8:30, 9 o'clock.
Yeah. So we'll be back soon with more episodes. If you guys have any questions, have any episode ideas, I know some of you have already sent some in. We love getting those emails. We love getting, even if we're delayed in replying to them. We love getting your messages on Facebook, Instagram. Just shoot us a message, however you'd like to.
And when you come out, we love it when you say you listen to the podcast.
Yeah,
it means so much to us.
It does. So thank you guys.
Share with your friends and stay safe out there.
Oh my gosh, stay safe out there.